Hey there, this is Pastor Tabitha Purple. We are doing our parenting tips, and today I want to do a reflection on testing and confidence. So, one thing, I am a former teacher, worked with 14 to 19-year-olds for 5 years, taught business, economics, travel and tourism, leisure and tourism, business, accounting, all sorts of things within the business sphere. Taught children from the high achieving, highly academic, all the way through to children on the learning needs spectrum with autism and dyspraxia and ADHD and things like that. So I had a wide spectrum of students. And one of the things, if you teach 14 to 19-year-olds, those are the critical testing years for any country, really. So within that time period, they will do the tests that determine their grades for their future education, if they're going that way, or for the finality of school. And so testing is a big part of the process. And as a teacher, as a former teacher particularly, there is a lot said about how tests impact on children, but also how important tests are to gauge where a student is. There are lots of discussions surrounding whether tests are the best method for assessing a child, whether it's just a learning by rote system. How do we avoid the kids who are just good at memorization? They forget it afterwards, can't apply it, but they're good at memorization. How do you put that into practice? And there are all sorts of discussions. But what today I want to really focus on is a child's confidence. And I want to look at it from a slightly different angle. If you are a child and you are tested frequently, how does that affect your confidence levels? I've never really thought about it, I guess, because in the UK, the discussions, although the children are tested frequently enough, they were at one point tested at 7, 11, 13 and 16, and then 18. So we have the kind of test years. The kind of intermediate test in between are not so much. And I had watched enough American television, I guess, to get a sense of the fact that like pop quizzes and testing was just a regular part of their education system, but was not really as heavily a part of, say, the UK system. We do sit mock exams, we do deliberately have tests, but there is a lot of research done in the UK about the fact that testing isn't good for students. So I never really thought about it too much. But we moved country, and in the country that we're residing, in the school system that we're in, there happens to be testing every day, every week. Every week these children are tested. They have tooches, the toots, not tooches. Tooches are dessert. They have toots, but they have tests all the time. And I'm not a big fan of tests. I don't think it's an accurate way to really assess if a child is learning. I think it assesses the fact that some children can memorize, but that's not necessarily learning. I think when you go to school, you should learn in all of its variety and colour. I'm very much a believer in lifelong learning and the fact that you should have the attitude that you will learn for the rest of your life. And obviously I've taken on a second language in my latter years, so that's part of our family ethos, is learning, and we have pursued education and we pursue different ways of learning. We are constantly seeking new information and pushing and challenging ourselves in different areas, but tests have never really formed a part of my everyday vocabulary until I moved to this country. And I had not noticed the hugely negative effect it had on particularly one of the two of my children. One of my kids would just go through the test like it was nothing. They would say all year long, oh, we don't think he's going to make it. Oh my goodness, this was difficult for him because he's moved up grades, and they're looking at him like, oh my gosh, you can't do this. Then he would do the end of year test. He'd blow it out of the water. He'd score the top grade, and we'd all just move on. But I hadn't noticed the toll it was taken on the children's confidence levels. And it's only until we've taken a break from the testing and they are now back into mummy's domain of homeschooling, where there are not tests every day. In fact, there are conversational learning, especially when we're doing science and math subjects, we try and find different and unique ways of putting it into everyday life. Because one of the things for science and maths particularly is that it's very useful for everyday life, but it can be taught in ways that make you feel as if math and science have no relevance to your everyday life. But if you do gardening, if you are a chef or a baker, if you are at the supermarket, all of these science math lessons are so relevant, and so it's really important. So we find ways of kind of mixing it up, so they may learn a theory, but then we might look at ways in which that theory would be practiced. And one of the things I've noticed is that the children, and my husband pointed out to me, the children literally have gone back to school with their normal level of confidence again. I was feeling overjoyed because it looked like I could see my normal confident kid who was just, happy being himself, happy with his achievement levels. And then they had a test. They were back at school part-time for 2 days, and someone gave them a test. Someone actually tested. And so my really highly academic kid, who normally flies through tests and isn't bothered, got a B, and he was very distressed about this B, and was like, I don't get B's, I don't get C's, these are not my grades, and I saw him his confidence take a knock, and I thought, well, what was the point of the test? Was it to prove that he hadn't done any learning through your system? Well, I told you that. You didn't need to give him a test and make him feel less than in order to prove that he hadn't learned anything in your curriculum. I told you we abandoned it. I told you it didn't work, and I told you that this was going to be a problem. So what do we do? And then for my other son, I saw him start to retreat immediately as the word test was mentioned. He has a big year ahead of him, and he's got big tests available to him. And immediately I saw his confidence just deflate almost. And I thought to myself, is it so important that we tick boxes, that we kill our children's confidence, we kill our children's creativity, their ability to think and develop thought, we kill their love for learning because we love tests so much? I mean, seriously. And I think that this has really been quite problematic for me, because I'm a teacher, and I do think that academic achievement is important. I do think that education is important, but not at the expense of the child. Not at the expense of the child in front of you, whose soul is being crushed under the weight of this permanent testing. I mean, let's be real. In your actual job, are you tested every week? Seriously, are you tested so much? Is that how you feel your everyday working life goes? If it is, we need to review your working life, because tests are not what it's about. Life isn't about testing and constantly picking a grade, although I have noticed here there's a propensity to test even adults a lot. So I'm just a bit what is the national obsession with testing in the Netherlands? What are you people doing? And why, in a country that I come from and other countries that I know, Finland, for example, where they don't test, they don't give homework, they don't do all of those things, but highly academic achieving countries where they test only when it is relevant to the subjects and to what they're doing, why is it that they all know that it's not good, but, a country like the Netherlands doesn't get that? Am I in the wrong school system? Am I missing something? Are other parents enjoying something? But the detrimental effect that testing has on a child's confidence, I really believe that as adults, we need to look at this and go, we obviously have made a mistake. Children need to develop as children, and of course children develop at all sorts of different rates, and there's all kinds of factors, and I get that, and I get that we have to call an end to structured education at some point, and a test is the way to do that, or some sort of academic assessment is the way to do that. Let me put it like that. But we live in a world where academic assessments are so broad now. They're so wide. We've got so much access to information. Why are we making these kids jump hoops? So this is really just an observation about, if you have a child that maybe they're lacking confidence academically, maybe they're lacking confidence in themselves, in their own abilities, maybe they put themselves down, maybe they feel less than. Have you considered that testing is a part of that process? And actually, as a parent, then you're going to have to be proactive in the testing process to ensure that the classroom tests do not absolve your child of confidence. Like, and how do you do that? How do you actually then put all that back in place? And so it's been nice to have a pause where I realize that and I'm able to put that all back in place. But now as a parent, I'm thinking they're back in the school system again. Even though it's part-time, they're only there for 2 days, even though it's that, they're still being tested again. So how do I ensure that my child knows that this test, whatever that test is not going to define their worth and their value? It does not define who they are. A test does not give value to a human. Whatever grade you get, it's not a comparative race to see who is the most valuable human, and that's it. You are valuable because you are valuable. And in my worldview, in terms of Christianity, you are valuable because God created you and he wants you, all of you, and all of your beautiful colour and all of your beautiful drama. He loves you and he wants you to be the best version of you. Not the best tested version, but the best version of you. He wants your character to develop. He wants you to be kind and loving. And he wants you to be a good person. So at the end of the day, is the test really the most important thing? And should that define your worth and your value? And I think that that's where my frustration is, where it really is talking about that level. So that's my thought for the day. Does testing affect your child's confidence? And therefore, should you act accordingly and ensure that they understand that testing does not define their value or worth? Have a blessed and beautiful day, people. Bye bye.